You know, it's funny how certain things, little things, can pull a memory right out of the attic of your mind. Just the other day, I was sitting at the kitchen table, had the window open, breeze rolling through, and I was slicing up some bananas for my great-grandbaby's snack. Lord have mercy, the smell hit me like a freight train. That sweet, sunny smell, all soft and yellow and summer-like, it took me straight back to 1958. I near dropped the knife, I tell you. One second I'm right there in my kitchen in Somerset, and the next, I'm barefoot in the grass, holding a sticky banana popsicle and Logan so hard my ribs ached. 14 years old again. Back in Rose Hollow. Back when the world felt endless and safe, and my best friend Margie Lynn Bellwether was the loudest, wildest thing in it. I hadn't thought of her like that in a long time. Oh, I've remembered her. Lord knows I've remembered. But this was different. This was one of those memories that pulls at you, like a thread from an old sweater you didn't know was unraveling. It wasn't just the popsicle. It was the laugh I heard in my head, hers, high and sharp and full of trouble. And then I could see her, plain as day. That messy braid, those two big freckles, her polka-dot dress flapping in the wind like she was about to take off. Margie always said she was gonna fly away someday, just like a movie star in one of those big Hollywood pictures. I used to laugh when she said it. We'd make believe we were famous, practicing autographs on church bulletins, strutting like peacocks past the Piggly Wiggly. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that one September evening, she really would disappear, poof, just like she always dreamed, only not in the way either of us imagined. And for 60 years after that, there wasn't a day I didn't wonder where she went, or why she never said goodbye. Now, I ain't told many people the story. Some things you tuck so far down, you start to believe they're safer that way. But the truth is, it's never really left me. It stayed like a pebble in my shoe, or a page stuck half-turned. And I reckon maybe, just maybe, I'm finally ready to turn that page out loud. I figure if you've stuck around this long, you've probably got your own half-turned pages too. So here's the thing. A few months back, I got a Facebook message. Now don't you laugh? Yes, this old bird's on Facebook. I mainly use it to spy on my grandkids, see who's wearing what they shouldn't. But that day, it wasn't about them. The message was short. Just one line. Said, "Are you Clara Jean from Rose Hollow?" My hands started shaking. My eyes went all blurry, because right there, sitting in my inbox, was a voice I hadn't heard in 6 decades. A voice I'd given up ever hearing again. Margie Lynn Bellwether. After 60 years of silence. 60 years of not knowing if she was dead, gone, or just forgetful. There she was, alive, real, and reaching back across all that time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, this ain't just a story. This is a piece of my soul I've kept quiet for too long. And maybe it's time I told it. Because you see, I didn't know it back then, but the last summer we spent together, that was the last real summer of my girlhood. And the night she vanished, well, that changed the way I loved people for the rest of my life. Back then, in Rose Hollow, Kentucky, life had a certain rhythm to it. Slow, predictable, sweet most days. We had one church, one school, and one sheriff who also happened to be Margie Lynn Bellwether's daddy. Folks waved from their porches, even if they didn't like you. The postman knew your dog's name. And the biggest excitement we got was when Miss Hattie's rooster chased a boy clear down Main Street. Every house had a clothesline, every Sunday had fried chicken, and every heart held its own little secret, especially us girls. I was 14 that year, old enough to notice the world didn't always make sense, but still young enough to believe that if you closed your eyes and wished hard enough, the world might just listen. My name's Clara Jean Thompson, or at least, that's what it was back then. Folks know me now as Clara Jean Mullins, but sometimes, when I sit out on the porch with my knitting, I still hear someone calling out Clara Jean, like Margie used to holler across the schoolyard. We were in the 8th grade, though we thought we were practically women. I had a crooked tooth, a wild imagination, and a heart that hadn't been broken yet. I believed kindness was the most important thing in the world, and that if someone loved you, they'd always come back, eventually. My daddy worked the mines just outside of town. Mama taught me how to make biscuits without measuring a thing. I had 2 younger brothers who thought I was some kind of witch, 'cause I could braid my hair with my eyes closed. We didn't have much, didn't have a pot to pee in really, but we made do with what we had. That was just the way things were back then. Summers were for picking wild blackberries, running through the woods till our legs were scratched silly, and sneaking sips of sweet tea when Mama wasn't looking. Winters smelled like wood smoke and Vicks Vapor Rub. Everything was smaller, the town, the dreams, even the troubles. But it all felt big to me then. We didn't have a television, not yet. We had the radio, though, and Lord, the way that thing lit up the room when Patsy Cline came on. Mama would hum while she quilted, and I'd daydream about wearing sparkly dresses, dancing on a stage somewhere far, far from Rose Hollow. I didn't want to be famous like Margie did. I just wanted to be seen, to be known for something. Maybe for being kind, or for writing poems. I kept a notebook hidden under my mattress, full of scribbles and secrets, mostly about Margie and the silly stuff we did, like pretending we were secret agents with lipstick radios. Margie was something else entirely. Wild as a buck. That girl. Her mama tried to keep her in dresses and ribbons, but Margie always had grass stains on her knees and dirt under her nails. Said she was practicing for Hollywood, that no real actress stayed clean for long. I adored her. Everybody did. But she let me see the pieces of herself. She didn't show the rest. The softer side. The side that got quiet sometimes when the school bell rang, or when her daddy's cruiser pulled into the driveway. I didn't understand it all then, just figured maybe she was tired. I know better now. Still, in those days, the world felt whole, solid, like nothing could shake it loose. I believed people were who they said they were. That grown-ups told the truth. That thus friends never disappeared. I believed if someone promised to meet you after supper, they would. But life has a way of teaching you otherwise. And that September? Well, it taught me the hardest lesson of all. I still remember the way the air felt that day, thick with the smell of honeysuckle and something else I couldn't quite name at the time. The sun was starting to dip, long shadows stretching out across the gravel path behind the school. It was a Tuesday. Funny how you remember things like that, ain't it? Not the big stuff, not always, but the little details. The way the light hid her hair, the scuff on her saddle shoes, the way she looked back over her shoulder just a second too long, like she was memorizing something. We were supposed to meet after supper, like always, down by the old mill. That was our spot. Had been since we were 9. It was quiet, tucked away off the road, with an old wooden wheel that didn't turn no more. We'd carved our initials into the post, buried a box full of secrets in the dirt, and made more promises there than I can count. That day at school, Margie had slipped me a note in history class, nothing big, just said, "Meet me after supper. Got something to tell you." I didn't think much of it at the time. Margie was always cooking up some plan or another. Half the time it involved sneaking into her daddy's cruiser just to sit behind the wheel like we owned the world. But that note felt different. She hadn't been herself for a few days. Quieter. Less sparkle in her step. And when I looked at her across the lunch table, there was a kind of sadness behind her eyes I couldn't name yet, not then. But I felt it. That evening, I wore my favorite cardigan, the yellow one with the daisy buttons. I even brushed my hair twice. Don't ask me why. Maybe I had a feeling. Or maybe it was just that age when every little thing starts to feel like it means something. I remember Mama calling after me, "Be back, for it's dark, Clara Jean." And I called back, "I will," like I always did. But I never saw Margie again. I waited at the mill till the fireflies came out, sat on that old log we used as a bench, kicked at the dirt, hummed a little tune we used to sing. And when she didn't come, I figured maybe she got held up. Maybe her daddy had come home in one of his bad moods and she couldn't sneak away. That happened sometimes. We didn't talk much about it, but I knew. You can tell when somebody's home life isn't the same as yours, even when you're just a kid. Next morning at school, her desk was empty. By lunchtime, it was still empty. By Friday, her name had been scraped off the homeroom chart like it was never there. Nobody said a word. Not the teachers, not the sheriff, not even the girls who used to follow her around like ducklings. Just gone, like she never was. I asked Mama what happened and she just said, "Something's our family business, honey, not ours to question." But I did question. I questioned every day. I walked past that mill and half hoped to see her sitting there with a popsicle and a grin. I even wrote her letters, pages and pages, but I didn't have nowhere to send them. Just folded 'em up and hid 'em in the box we buried. Still have 'em, too. At the time, I couldn't explain it, but my heart, it knew something had cracked. I felt it, deep down, like a door slamming shut in a hallway I wasn't allowed to walk through. I kept thinking, what did I miss? What did she need to tell me? I was only 14, but I knew. This wasn't just a move or a goodbye. This was something else. Something bigger. Something broken. And I guess, in some quiet part of myself, I've been waiting at that mill ever since. After Margie disappeared, everything looked the same, but none of it felt the same. The trees still turned gold in October. The church bells still rang on Sunday. Mama still folded the laundry into neat little piles, and Daddy still came home with coal dust in the lines of his face. But inside me, nothing was in its right place anymore. It was like the air had shifted, just a little, but enough to make me feel like I didn't belong in my own world. I kept expecting to turn a corner and hear her laugh loud and sure as ever echoing across the schoolyard. But her locker stayed locked. Her name wasn't whispered anymore. Folks moved on quick in Rose Hollow, quicker than I could. I asked Mama again a few days later when we were shelling peas on the porch, "Do you think Margie's coming back?" I said it quiet, like if I whispered it just right, maybe the wind would carry it to wherever she was. Mama didn't even look up, just said, "Best not to dwell, honey. Her folks had their reasons." Then she handed me the bowl and started humming hymns like I hadn't just asked about my best friend vanishing off the face of the earth. That's when the fear crept in. Not the kind that jumps out and grabs you, but the slow kind, like water rising in your boots. The kind that soaks into your bones. I started wondering if I had done something wrong. Maybe I hadn't listened close enough. Maybe I hadn't seen whatever it was she was trying to show me. Maybe if I'd told somebody, or followed her, or asked better questions. But who was I supposed to ask? Her daddy, Sheriff Bellwether, he kept driving his patrol car through town like nothing had happened, tipped his hat to the baker, waved at old ladies. Nobody talked about Margie. Not at the store, not at the post office, and certainly not at church. I tried once, asked Miss Wilma, our teacher, if Margie transferred schools. She just blinked at me and said, "Focus on your arithmetic, Clara Jean. Don't go meddling in things that aren't your business." Not my business. That stung. Because if your best friend disappears and no one explains a blessed thing, what is your business? I started to feel like I was carrying something heavy that nobody else could see, and it made me mad. Not shouting mad, but a different kind. A tired, aching kind. The kind that sits in your chest and makes your prayers quieter than they used to be. I didn't tell anyone how scared I felt, or how angry. I didn't even tell my diary, just drew big black circles on the pages. I felt silly crying some nights, so I'd press my face into the pillow and try not to make a sound. I kept going to school, kept helping Mama, kept folding my hands at supper. But something in me had shifted. I stopped singing along with the radio. Stopped daydreaming. I didn't climb trees anymore. I stopped going down to the old mill. Couldn't bear to see it sitting. They're all empty, like a broken promise. I guess that was the real start of it, when I learned that not every story gets told. That sometimes, even when you love somebody, the world will close its mouth and look the other way. I didn't have words for it then, but now I know that was shame. Not mine, not really, but I carried it like it was. And the thing about silence, it grows roots. From that point on, I didn't let people in too close. I still smiled, still played the part. But deep down, I'd started holding pieces of myself back. Because if Margie could be here one day, Logan under the magnolia tree, and gone the next, without even a goodbye, then what else could disappear? There's a kind of quiet that don't feel peaceful. It's heavy, like breath caught in your throat. After Margie disappeared, that kind of quiet settled over me, not all at once, but like dust, slow and sure. The days turned into months, then years, and still no word. Not a letter, not a rumor, not even a whisper in the grocery line. Just gone, like a chalk drawing washed away in the rain. But the silence didn't stay outside me, it got in. And little by little, I stopped to skin. Stopped remembering out loud. Stopped hoping the way I used to. I remember one afternoon in the summer of '63, I was sitting on the porch with my mama, watching the road curl out past the tobacco fields. I was 19 by then, had a job at the diner, a boy who liked to take me dancing, a life I was learning to shape around the hollow place inside me. I hadn't said Margie's name in 2 years. But that day, out of nowhere, I looked up and said, "Do you think she ever really meant to come back?" Mama didn't answer right away, just stared out at the fields, her hands still in her lap. Finally she said, real quiet like, "Sometimes, baby, people leave because they have to. And sometimes they leave because they don't know how to stay." Then she got up and went inside, and I just sat there, feeling like a child again, lost and small in the big wide world. But the moment that broke me, the one I still dream about sometimes, like a reel stuck on loop, that came later. It was fall, chilly, golden, quiet. I was cleaning out the old shed behind Daddy's workshop, digging through boxes of forgotten things. I opened a rusty tin, one of those old cookie tins folks always use for thread, and there, folded up neat as you please, was one of the letters I'd written to Margie. My handwriting, still round and girlish, but I hadn't hidden it there. Mama had. I froze. Just froze. The world tilted a little. I remember hearing the wind outside, the slow creak of the shed door. I remember my hands shaking, and I remember thinking Mama read them. All those nights I stayed up pouring my heart onto paper, trying to say the things I couldn't say out loud. She'd found them, kept them, but never told me. And then I looked deeper in the box, and there they were, all of them, every single letter, tied up with twine like they were precious, like they mattered. And that's when the clock stopped. I mean that almost literally. Daddy's old pocket watch, sitting on the shelf next to the box, had stopped ticking. The hands stuck at 4:07. I remember because I stared at that watch for what felt like forever. And all I could think was, why didn't she let me send them? I didn't say nothing. Not to her. Not to anyone. I just walked out of that shed and didn't go back for a long time. That night, I cried for the first time in years. Really cried. Curled up in bed like I was still 14. It wasn't just Margie I was grieving. It was the girl I'd been when she left. The girl who believed that love always came back. That truth always got told. That grown-ups told you things when they mattered. That moment, that box of letters, it cracked something wide open in me. From then on, I knew. The world didn't always give you closure. Sometimes it just handed you silence and expected you to carry it. And Lord help me, I did. I carried it right into adulthood, into motherhood, into the way I held people at arm's length. That's how it changed me. That's what I lost. I lost the girl who waited at the mill. After that day in the shed, after the box, the letters, the stopped clock, it felt like I'd been hollowed out. Not in some dramatic, thunder and lightning kind of way. No, it was quieter than that. Emptier. Like someone had turned the volume down on the world. Everything kept moving. Daddy still worked. Mama still made biscuits on Sunday. The seasons came and went like they always did, but inside me, it was just stillness. Cold, echoing stillness. I didn't ask any more questions after that. About Margie. About anything, really. I went to work at the diner full-time. Married a man who was kind to me, steady and sweet in that quiet way some mountain men are. His name was Roy Mullins. We met at the church picnic, and he liked the way I folded napkins. Can you believe that? Said I made 'em look like roses. I let myself fall into that life, slowly, gently. Not because I was whole again, but because it was easier to move with the current than fight it. We had 2 boys. I raised 'em right. Kept busy with casseroles, calendars, PDA meetings. And nobody ever asked me about Margie Lynn Bellwether. And if they did, I just smiled. Said, oh, we were friends once. That's all. Just once. But the truth is, I carried her with me. In my quiet. In the way I held people at arm's length, even when I was loving them with my whole heart. I never got close to another girlfriend the way I did with her. Couldn't. Wouldn't. I told myself it was because I'd grown up. Because I didn't need that kind of foolish girl talk anymore. But deep down, I knew I was scared. Scared of losing someone again without a reason. Without an answer. So I just stayed pleasant. Kept my stories shallow. Smiled more than I meant to. I stopped writing too. My notebook went into a drawer and never came back out. I stopped daydreaming. Stopped hoping the way I used to. And my faith, Lord, my faith took a long walk through the desert. I still went to church, still sang the hymns, still folded my hands. But I started to wonder if God really answered little girls crying into pillows at night, if he even heard them. I believed he was real. I just didn't think he was listening to me. There were moments, sweet ones, real ones, that made me laugh again. I'm not saying I never found joy, but it came in slivers, not waves. It never quite reached the part of me that used to believe people always came back. And the thing is, when you lose someone without a goodbye, it teaches you not to expect one. I stopped waiting, stopped watching the road. Life got quieter. Not worse, just simpler, safer. I baked pies, tended my roses, watched my boys grow up. They never knew the girl I was before. Never knew about the pinky swear behind the mill, the box in the dirt, the way my heart beat faster every time I saw a girl in polka dots. That version of me, Clara Jean with the 2 big dreams and scraped knees, she stayed frozen in 1958. And I left her there. Couldn't carry her with me. I thought that was just how it was. Some stories don't get endings. Some people vanish, and you find a way to breathe without am. I didn't expect answers anymore. Not from God. Not from Mama. Certainly not from the girl who ran off into the dark. So when I saw that Facebook message, all those years later, I near dropped my tea. My heart didn't race, not at first. It stopped, like the clock in Daddy's shed. Because after all that silence, she spoke. It was a Tuesday again, don't that just figure? Funny how time circles back on itself like that. I'd just finished setting out a fresh pie to cool, and the house was still. Afternoon sun spilling across the linoleum. I sat down with a glass of sweet tea and my knitting, and I remember thinking how quiet retirement could be. Too quiet some days. I don't mind stillness, not after all these years, but there's a difference between quiet and emptiness. I was starting to feel the difference more and more. Then I heard it. That little ding. You know the one. That soft little sound Facebook makes when someone sends a message. I barely looked up. Figured it was my niece sending another picture of her cat in a sweater. But something, I don't know what, told me to check. Maybe it was the light shifting through the blinds. Maybe it was God tapping me on the shoulder. I picked up my phone, opened the app, and there it was. Just a single message. No photo. No long explanation. Are you? Clara Jean from Rose Hollow. My hand went cold. My heart didn't skip, it stopped. I read it again. And again. My fingers hovered over the screen, like touching it might break the spell. I felt like a girl again, sitting on the edge of her bed with a flashlight under the covers, reading something meant just for her. I clicked the name. It said Margie Lynn Bellwether. Just like that. The name I'd whispered in prayers and dreams. The name I'd buried and mourned. I didn't answer right away. I just stared. I cried, too, the kind of tears that don't need sobs, just fall slow and steady, like rain on a roof. My hands shook as I set the phone down. I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't know what to feel. Joy, fear, anger, all of it came rushing up like a river that had been dammed for too long. She was alive. I don't know why that shocked me so much. Maybe because I'd spent 60 years rehearsing every possible version of the truth, and none of them had her alive and looking for me. I thought maybe she was somewhere far away with a new name, a new life, all of it locked away from the girl she used to be. I thought maybe I was the only one who remembered, but I was wrong. The next day, I wrote her back. Just 5 words. Yes, I remember you, Margie. I held my breath when I hit send. It was like I was 14 again, waiting at the old mill. But this time, she came. She told me everything. Slowly, carefully, like unwrapping a bandaged wound. Said her mama had taken her and her brother away in the middle of the night. Said her daddy wasn't just a hard man, he was dangerous. That she'd lived under a different name for years, scared he'd find them. That they moved 3 times before she was 16. No phones, no letters, just gone. And all that time, she carried me in her memory. Said she never forgot the mill, or the lemon drops we used to share, or the way I sang Patsy Cline off-key but full of heart. We wrote back and forth for weeks. Then we called. Hearing her voice again, raspy now, but still Margie, it did something to me. Like a window cracking open in a stuffy room. I started breathing deeper. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding my pain. How afraid I was to let go of it, like it was the last piece of her I had. But here she was. Real, alive, and reaching back. And just like that, I found myself smiling again. Not out of habit, but out of hope. I don't know what I expected, driving back to Rose Hollow after all those years. Maybe to feel like a stranger in my own memories. maybe to turn that last bend in the road and feel nothing at all. But I'll tell you what, the moment I saw that old mill come into view, I felt 14 and 65 all at once. The boards were grayer now, the wheels still broken, but it stood just like I remembered. And Lord have mercy, it took everything in me not to cry right then and there. Margie was already there, waiting. She wore a denim jacket and had her hair pulled back in a scarf, just like her mama used to. And in her hands, would you believe it, was a mason jar of lemonade. Figured it was only right, she said, smiling through tears. We didn't run to each other. We didn't hug right away. We just stood there, looking. Two old women with soft hands and bad knees, standing in the place where two young girls once made a pinky swear to never say goodbye. She spoke first. I'm sorry. Her voice cracked. I never stopped thinking about you. And I believed her. I told her everything I'd carried. The letters, the box, the questions, the ache. I told her how I stopped writing, stopped dreaming, how I built a life around the hollow space she left behind. And she listened, quiet, eyes brimming. Then she told me her side, what it was like to pack up in the middle of the night, to erase your name, to live every day wondering if the past might catch up. We cried, we laughed a little, and we cried again. Then we sat, right there on that old log, and opened the dirt with our hands, just like before. And would you believe it? That old tin box was still there, rusted and bent, but whole. Inside were scraps of paper, a candy wrapper, and a tiny button from my favorite yellow cardigan. We held each piece like it was gold. And that's when I knew. I knew that I had a choice to make. Not about Margie. I'd already forgiven her. She did what she had to do to survive. No, the choice was about me. About what I'd let the past do to me, how I'd let it wall off the parts of me that used to sing, to write, to hope. And I realized I didn't want to live behind that wall anymore. So I did something simple. I took the old letters, the ones I'd written her all those years ago, and I set them down by the mill. Every one of them. Didn't burn 'em. Didn't tear 'em. Just left them. Like offerings. Like blessings. Let the wind do what it would. And in that moment, I said it not out loud, but deep in my soul. I choose to live forward. Without blame. Without what-ifs. Just forward. We hugged then. Long and tight, like no time had passed at all. And as we sat sipping lemonade, watching the sun fall through the trees, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from forgiving. From looking the past in the eye and saying, you don't get to keep me anymore. That day at the mill didn't fix everything. It didn't turn back the clock or stitch up every old wound. But it gave me back something I thought I'd lost for good. My voice, my hope, my girlhood, in a way not to live in, but to honor. And so I did the only thing left to do. I went home, baked a pie, and started writing again. Time does a strange thing to memory. It don't erase it, no, not really. It just softens the edges, like river stones worn smooth from years of run-in water. When I think back on Margie now, I don't see the girl who disappeared. I see the girl who made me laugh so hard I snorted sweet tea out my nose. The girl who taught me to dance with my eyes closed. The girl who once stood on a table in the middle of the school cafeteria and shouted, I'm gonna be famous, y'all. Like the whole world was just waiting on her to show up. And maybe, in her own way, she was right. I used to think I lost her. For years, I carried that loss like a bruise I didn't want nobody touching. But now I know better. You don't really lose a friend like that, not completely. They become part of the fabric of who you are. Woven in, stitch by stitch, until one day you realize they've been with you all along. Not in the loud ways, not in the everyday, but in the quiet things, the way you hum a certain song, or the smell of summer rain on pavement, or the instinct to reach for a second glass when pouring lemonade. What I've come to understand is this: the people we love don't disappear when they're gone. They just shift, sometimes into memories, sometimes into lessons, sometimes, if you're lucky, back into your life when you least expect it. And it took me a long time, a lifetime, really, to figure out that waitin' ain't the same as hopin'. I waited for Margie for 60 years, but I stopped hoping somewhere along the way. I let the wait turn into fear, into silence. But hope is something different. Hope is active. Hope is brave. Hope gets up in the morning, ties on an apron, and says, maybe today. I guess that's what I want to tell you, whoever you are, sitting on the other side of the screen, maybe with your own unfinished stories and long-buried letters. Maybe it's time to stop waiting. Maybe it's time to write the letter, or make the call, or stand outside your own old mill and let the wind take what it needs. 'Cause here's the truth I've earned the hard way: not everything gets wrapped up neat. Not everyone says goodbye. Not all endings are fair. But none of that means your story has to stop. You get to go on. You get to grow around the ache. You get to love again. To trust again. To laugh, wide and wild and unpretty, even if your heart's been broken. Maybe especially then. I used to think forgiveness was something you gave to someone else. Now I know it starts with yourself. And if I can forgive a whole lifetime of silence, maybe you can, too. Whatever silence you're carrying. Margie and I still write. We send letters the old way, now paper and pen, like girls again. She signs hers with a little heart. And every time I see it, I smile. Because we didn't get all the years we thought we would. But we got this one. And for me, that's enough. So, if you're listening, really listening, let me leave you with this. Maybe it's time you stopped waiting at your own old mill. Maybe the person you miss ain't coming back. That maybe you can come back to yourself. And Lord knows, that's a start. These days, I sit out on the porch most evenings with a quilt on my lap and a mason jar of tea in my hand. I watch the sky turn soft with dusk, and I listen to the laughter of my grandbabies running through the yard like fireflies, quick and full of joy. Sometimes, when the light's just right, I see two little girls out there too, one in a polka-dot dress, the other with a crooked braid, dancing barefoot in the grass, singing to the wind like it's an audience. And I smile, because that part of me, the part one thought was lost, she never really left. The other day, my youngest granddaughter asked me, "Grandma, were you ever scared when you were little?" I looked at her, cheeks sticky with popsicle, eyes full of that wild wonder, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. I wanted to tell her everything, all at once. About Margie, about letters in the dirt, about what it means to wait too long and forgive too late. But instead, I just pulled her into my arms and said, "Yes, sweetheart, but I was never alone." And somehow, I think that's the truth that matters most. You know, people think stories like this belong in the past, that they're just echoes, soft, sentimental things you pull out once in a while, like an old photograph. But I don't believe that. This story, it's about now, about what you carry, about what you still haven't said, about the voice you keep quiet in your chest, because it's easier that way. And maybe, just maybe, it's about the chance to let a little bit of that go. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Lord knows, I've spent enough years learning that no one can walk your road but you. But if my story means anything at all, I hope it reminds you that it's never too late for a second chapter. Never too late to make peace with the page that didn't turn out how you hoped. You don't have to rewrite the whole book. Just pick up the pen. Start with one line, even if it's just, "I remember." I wonder sometimes, if Margie hadn't messaged me that day, would I still be waiting, still holding on to the girl I was, not letting her grow up. I don't know, but I do know this. Love leaves a mark. Real love, the kind that buries candy wrappers in old boxes and remembers your laugh 60 years later. It stays. Maybe not in the way we expect, but it stays. And sometimes it even finds its way back home. So let me ask you, and I mean you, sitting there with your phone or your tea or your quiet ache. Do you think real love is meant to come back? And if it does, will you be ready to open the door? Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never gone back to the mill. If I'd never answered that message. If I'd kept pretending the past was just a dream. But then I hear Margie's voice on the line, or I watch our granddaughters play the same games we once did, and I think maybe that's the miracle. Not that we got all the time we lost, but that we got this moment right here. And sometimes, late at night, I take out my old notebook. The one I thought I'd buried for good. I don't write much, just a few words now and then. But it feels good, like coming home to a part of myself I thought was gone. So I'll leave you with this thought, simple and unfinished, just like life. Sometimes, I think the past still remembers me, too.